So the first step is to remove the motor wires coming off of your ESC so we can directly solder the motor wires to the ESCs. So to prep your motors, you're going to want to strip off about a 2mm portion to expose the wire. Once you've done this, you're going to want to pre-tin the motor wires. After you've done this, simply connect the motor wires straight onto the ESC pads. Two motors should be sequential, and two motors should have two of the wires reversed. So this is like my first kind of true build video, and my head's going to get in the way for some of these shots. I didn't have the best camera setup. Hopefully next time I can get an actual mount to put my phone on. But if you guys missed anything you can't see, just leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you ASAP with an answer. Now that you have your motors wired up to the ESCs, I'd recommend mounting the motors to the frame to make the installation easier to the power distribution board. Alright, so the next step is going to be to measure out your power and ground wires coming off of your ESCs. Once you have them measured properly, go ahead and cut them to length and then pre-tin the tips. Now what you're going to do is connect the red to the positive on the power board and the black to the negative on the power board. Just make sure you pre-tin the power board with a nice dollop of solder. It doesn't really matter where you place the positive and negative around the board, just do whatever helps you make the cleanest build possible. So for my battery connection, I decided to tuck the positive and negative through the two slots on the bottom of the board because I'm going to be placing my battery underneath the frame, which I find helps with the center of gravity for rolling and flips. Something I always like to do on any solder points is throw some liquid electro tape onto the connections just to protect it from any moisture and to avoid any wires accidentally touching the board and shorting out your quad. I decided to go with the XT60 connectors because most of the batteries I buy have this connection. What you're going to want to do is put a nice dollop of solder onto the copper pins coming out of the XT60 female connector. Then pre-tin the tips of your positive and negative wires coming off the power distribution board. Just make sure you have enough slack to reach the battery. Before you solder on the connections, make sure to throw on some heat shrink so you can protect the connections. Once you've done this, I recommend zip tying the wires down to prevent the cables ripping off during a crash. Now at this step I decided to throw on my NACE 32 just to see how everything fits. I actually ended up mounting my board upside down to tuck the wires in for a cleaner build.